Hello, I'm Chantal Mitchell, and this is Transform Your Teaching, 7 non-negotiable strategies that every teacher must practice daily in order to achieve amazing instruction that moves the needle for students' learning. So hello again, I'm Chantal. I've been in education for over 10 years. I received my master's from Relay Graduate School of Education in New York City, where I've also taught for 7 years in the classroom. Those 7 years were spent in kindergarten and first grade. I then transitioned into becoming an instructional coach in California and now an assistant principal at an elementary school. Here's my why. Without intentional coaching and support, I believe that new teachers typically take around 3 or more years to become really, really good at managing their classrooms in a way that is suitable for the safety and academic growth of their students. But in the meantime, our children are suffering from not receiving the best education possible. So my goal is to continue to coach and support new teachers in their first 3 years of teaching so that while they're developing their skills, our students are still receiving the best possible education. Here's what's at stake when we don't strengthen our classroom management skills and our instructional delivery skills. It's our baby's development. And also, it's your burnout as the educator in the classroom. Those are things that we want to make sure that we tackle head on in our first 3 years of teaching. So here are the 7 non-negotiable strategies every teacher must practice. And in the next few minutes, we're going to go over each of them. So let's talk about number 1, creating an attractive physical environment. Now, your environment, it plays a role in your learning as a student. Here are some benefits of an attractive physical environment. It enhances the learning experience for students. As soon as students walk into your classroom, you want them to feel that positive, that enjoyable learning space that is made just for them. It makes them more receptive to the information, and it also fosters a love of learning. Another thing an attractive physical environment does is provides positive emotional impact. It provides positive emotions, making students feel happier and more relaxed. Think about how you feel when you walk into one of those beautiful, well-designed model homes. Even if you see them on TV, those beautifully designed homes, it makes you feel relaxed. It makes you feel kind of luxurious, feeling important. And that's the type of feeling you want students to feel when they enter your classroom. Like, yes, this space is made for me. I am ready to learn. And then the last thing this physical environment does is it supports strong classroom management. It makes it easier for teachers to facilitate lessons and maintains order. Because as you're designing your classroom, you're thinking about those things that students are going to need to use. And so you put them in a place that's organized and easily accessible. Now, the second thing that you need to do is uphold a strong social emotional environment. Now, this one's very important because it makes students feel safe, seen, and heard, which is really what every human wants. Okay? So a strong social environment contains self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. You need to be teaching self-regulation tools. And you need to also be your authentic self. There are so many social emotional curricula out there on the market. If your school has one, be sure to read it carefully and execute it carefully, because this is going to be the foundation in building strong relationships with your students and their parents. The next thing you need to do as a new teacher is communicate high expectations. Okay? A lot of times I'm hearing teachers might say, oh, they're just 5 years old. They're just 4 years old. They can't do that yet. Oh, I don't expect them to do that. No, you should communicate clearly and make sure your communication has observable outcomes so that children can meet your high expectations. And trust me, they can. When you don't have high expectations for students, just like this actor in Kindergarten Cop, your classroom can get messy, it can get chaotic, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So when you're communicating high expectations, here's a little tip. Use MVP-T. The M stands for movement, the V stands for voice level, and the P for participants. The T stands for time. When you're ready to give a direction to student, you want to make sure your direction has these four things. Take a look at the top example, and then we're going to compare that to the bottom example. So in the first example, the teacher says, everyone line up at the door, please. And the kids, they're yelling and running and skipping and hopping, pushing their way to the line. Why? Communication wasn't clear enough for students. Now take a look at the bottom example. This teacher uses MVP-T. Class, when I say go, take 10 seconds to safely and silently line up at the door. Your feet go on the line, hands at your side, eyes facing forward. Go. As you can see in the second example, the teacher has a movement that's lining up at the door. She has a voice level, silently. She includes the participants, which is the whole class. She says class. And lastly, it has a time, 10 seconds. So students are clear on how much time they have to line up. So they're not wasting time walking around in circles, playing with their backpacks. They also have an expectation of how to line up with a voice level. Teacher said silently, so they know, okay, I'm walking to the line silently. I'm not yelling, screaming, shouting. And she also, in the movement, she added some specific directions. Your feet go on the line. Now, I know when I get to the line as a kid, I know where my feet goes. My hands are by my side. That way I'm not touching my friends, I'm not pushing anyone. And my eyes are forward so that I'm ready to walk forward. I know I'm going somewhere when I'm lining up, but these specific directions really help me as a student to get there successfully. So I want you, when you're planning your directions in the classroom, to make them MVP-T. Number 4, you want to become an expert in your content area. Now, this usually takes a long time to develop, which is why you typically see teachers struggle in their first 2 years, because it takes a while to become an expert in any area. So to get ahead of the curve, what you want to do is study your standards. So most schools follow state standards, whether that be Common Core, or in your area, you have early childhood standards if you're teaching early childhood education. Find out what your standards are for your school and read them at least once a month. You also want to practice your grade level content. So if you're a pre-K or a first grade or kindergarten, you want to read through your entire curriculum so that you know what's coming ahead. You know how to do the work yourself, and you know what to expect from students. Okay? And you're asking yourselves these 3 questions to help you do that. What do students need to know in order to meet the standard? What do they need to do in order to show mastery of the standard? And then lastly, how are you assessing the standard? If you have the answers to these 3 questions going into your first year of teaching, you're already ahead of the curve because you know what to expect. So you're going to know how to plan for those things. Now, number 5, and this is the hardest part, even for veteran teachers. You need to start to master the process of differentiation. Now, what does differentiation mean? That's the act of customizing a standard lesson to meet the needs of all learners in your classroom. Because let's be real, the curriculum you're given is not going to be enough to reach every single learner in your classroom. So you, as the expert in the room, have to tailor those lessons to meet the needs for all your students. People are different, children are different, they learn differently. But differentiation is the foundation of creating an equitable learning environment. I'm sure some of you have seen this image before. The the difference between equality and equity. So the curriculum you're given represents equality. It's one curriculum, you use it for everyone. Everyone gets the same instruction. That's equal. But equity means you're providing a different approach tailored to students who need it so that they can be like the guy in blue. Notice the guy in blue, he could stand on his own. Most of your students are going to be able to stand on their own and see over the fence. They're going to be able to stand on their own and understand the curriculum as written. But then you have students in the middle who might need a little boost. They might need a little extra help, a little extra prompting in order to see over the fence, in order to understand the curriculum. And then you're going to need your students who need extra support, maybe above tier 1, some tier 2 support, some small groups, some one-on-one learning in order to see over the fence, in order to understand the curriculum. So as you're going into your teaching, you want to be thinking about how can I, after I know my students, how can I differentiate this curriculum and these lesson plans to meet all their needs? Number 6, you want to make sure that you're tracking your students' data and then using that data to inform instruction. It's not enough to just collect the data. As you see students working, you see them interacting with things. It's not enough to just like jot it down and then be done with it and never look back at it. You want to use that data to inform the next day's instruction, the next unit's instruction, or the next year's instruction. So you want to be making sure you're collecting data daily. And also make note of how you will target certain students. And lastly, assess. Okay, you want to know as the teacher, how are my students doing? At any given day, if someone comes up to you and asks you, hey, how is Marky doing in class? What are his strengths and what are his weaknesses? Because you are assessing daily, you should be able to quickly know or quickly locate Marky's files and say, hey, Marky's strengths are he socializes very well. He can write his name. He knows his letter sounds, but maybe he struggles with transitioning to different places, or he struggles with, I don't know, writing his numbers. But you need to know your students' data, because what that's going to do for you is going to help you make decisions in the moment when you're teaching. That's going to make that instruction equitable for all your students. All right, number 7, and most importantly, make learning joyful. Plan joyful moments in your lesson. Smile. A simple thing as a smile goes a long way. And lastly, use some rhythm and movement. These are the things that hook students and make them stay engaged in the lesson. I can't tell you how many times I see teachers teaching a lesson. They're not smiling, there's no rhythm, there's no movement, and the students are bored out of their minds, okay? So we want students to go home excited to tell their parents, oh my gosh, school was so much fun because the teacher was joyful, the lessons were joyful, they got to move, they got to use some rhythm. So think about, as you're planning your lessons, how can I incorporate some joy? Whether that be some hand clapping, some jumping, some spinning around, going outside. Please, please, please make the learning joyful for our babies. Now, I want to thank you for listening to my quick little spiel on my 7 strategies to make the classroom, to transform your teaching and make your classroom more joyful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at missmitchelltutor@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you need any assistance in anything, I'll be more than happy to help you. I'm so happy for you starting your teaching journey, and I wish you best of luck.